Howdy everybody, Dr. Neff here. We're going to be trying this again, but making sure my screen actually carries over. So I'm going to walk you through kind of what we did with Tableau in class and give you some click-by-click instructions. I'm going to try not to overwhelm, and for about 2/3 of it, it'll be the same for everybody, and then when I get to the end, I'm going to show you two different options. The first option is technically faster, but I am going to show you both just so you have that information. So now you should be able to see my screen. And so I'm on my main screen, just like we did before. I'm going to go to connect a file. I'm going to click Microsoft Excel, and I'm going to go to my Russell Westbrook 1617. Now, you'll notice mine comes in as RW16-17. That's because I renamed my sheets within the actual Excel file. What you're going to notice is I'm not going to go through the process of explaining how to make the files and clean them up and everything. That's on you. You should know how to do that. So going to sheet 1, down here at the bottom, you'll note we're on data source to begin with. Down at the bottom, we've got this sheet 1. I'm going to come in, and I really want to look at, as we did before, my wins and losses, and I want to look at them in comparison to different stats and see which ones do what. So I'm going to carry my wins and losses from over here on the left to my rows, and I'm going to drop it in just like that. And then I think points are probably going to be related to wins and losses. I think maybe field goal percentage, shooting well, and I think assists. I don't know. You don't have to pick the same ones I do. You don't have to pick. You can pick what you want. Now, as you'll notice, we have this single dot in the top right of each of these, and we don't want that. The problem we're running into here is that Tableau defaults to sum or aggregated data here. Now, we could go back and we could change these individually and switch them out and all that. But the easiest way to fix this is to go to my analysis up at the top and click on aggregate measures and uncheck it. And now I can see all of my data. And I can see each of these. And so looking at this one, there doesn't look to be a huge difference. There are a couple of lower ones here. There's a little more bunching at the top here, but I don't expect necessarily for there to be a lot here. Same thing here. There's not really a lot difference. This is a little bit more higher on the graph, I guess, but it's not crazy. And then same with assists. But eyeballing this doesn't really do me any good. So I want to know, is this useful? I'm going to go back to that analysis tab, and I'm going to scroll down to this trend lines, and I'm going to show all trend lines. Okay, so this one is positively correlated, but only barely. And when I mouse over it, you'll see the p-value of 0.59 means it's not very reliable, so I can't say that those are correlated. Here, I do actually have a pretty serious p-value of 0.002, so well below our 0.05. So this tells me that our field goal percentage is actually statistically significant. And then here, same thing with our assists. The ones you choose are up to you. This is just the ones I grabbed. No big deal. So there you go. There is a sheet. You could do 3, you could do 4. It's up to you, but that's all I'm looking for. Now, I'm going to come down here, and where it says sheet 1, down in the bottom left, I really want this to be a name of something. So I do W/L stats so that I know that this is win-loss stats, right? And now I want to add a second sheet. So I'm going to come down here. I'm going to click on this. There's 3 buttons here. The first one is to add a sheet. The second one is a dashboard. And the third is a story. We're not messing with stories right now, but we will be using the other 2. So I'm going to start with new worksheet. So now I've got sheet 2 here. This is the one we did by date. I kind of want to break down his individual games to see how they looked. So I'm going to come up here to the left side, and I'm going to see, you'll note I've got tables at the top and then numbers at the bottom. So these are, like, in this tables tab. The ABC ones just means that they're letters and numbers. They're not regular numbers that can be counted. All of these are straight up numbers. These are ABCs, or they have this date, right? And so date or time. So this one is date, and this one that has the little clock is time, which makes sense. So I'm going to grab the date, and I'm going to bring it over to my rows. Now, it defaults to 2016, 2017 on year. That's not very helpful. I want to see the day by day. So I'm going to click the drop down. I'm going to come all the way down here to this day that has May 8th, 2015 showing, because I want the whole date showing, not just the number. I click on that, and it spreads out all of my days. And so now I can see each day. Okay? And now I'm going to look at the same three stats in this case, just because it makes sense. So I've got my points, I've got my field goal percentage, and I've got my assists. But this data still looks kind of weird, and it's not easy to read. So I'm going to go over here to the top right, and I'm going to click on this Show Me, and I chose horizontal bar graph. Okay? That is not the only option, it's the one I went with. Down at the bottom, as you see, as I mouse over each one of these tables, you can see this little icon pop up next to the name of the variable. If I click on one of those, it will reorganize first, in this case, descending order. If I click it again, it goes to ascending order. And if I click it a third time, it goes back to the order of the dates the games were played. So I'm going to do field goal percentage on mine because that makes sense to me. But I don't know which of these games were wins and which ones were losses. So I need something to indicate that. Now, rather than trying to bring in wins and losses and make new tables, what I really want to do is color code this. So here in between my tables and my sheet, I have this pages, filters, and marks. On the marks with all selected, and if something else were selected, like some field goal percentage or whatever, I can just click on all. You see I've got these options for label, tooltip, detail, size, and color. I'm just going to grab this win-loss and drag it over the color and drop it. And what it does is it color codes my data. And you'll note I've got a lot more of these light ones, which are losses, at the bottom, and a lot more of the dark ones at the top for wins. Makes sense, since we found that this was directly, positively correlated to wins and losses. So that gives me pretty good basic data. I've got these two set up. Now this sheet I'm going to call date stats. Okay. Now that I've got these two, I'm going to come in here and actually click the wrong button. I'm going to go to this second button on the new and create a new dashboard. Now, on the dashboard screen, you'll see on the left side, I've got both of those sheets are showing, so I can pull from either one. I've also got a size. Now, for most of you on your laptops, this isn't going to make much of a difference, but I've got a lot of screen to work with here. So rather than a fixed size, I'm going to use automatic, and all I'm doing is clicking down arrow, and that automatic is going to make it fit the whole screen. This gives me more space to work with. So I'm going to carry in my win-loss stats, and then I'm going to carry in my date stats, and as you can see, as I move it around, I can decide what orientation to put it in. So I'm going to put it here on the left. Cool. Well, I've got it on the left, but my little win-loss indicator that tells me the colors and what they mean is on the other side. So I'm actually going to grab this by that little thing at the top. I'm going to carry it over, and I'm going to swap them. So now you're in the middle. That makes sense. Cool. Now, I added two additional things to this in class. The first was a title. So I'm going to grab this text from the objects over here, and I'm just going to click and drag it, and I'm going to put it up here at the top. Now, regardless of whether I do the big space or the little space, if I can get it just right, it's still going to be too big, so I'm going to have to resize it. So we're just going to go with it. I'm going to pop up this text box, and I can choose different fonts. I can change my font size. I'm going to do like 24 because I have a big screen here. I'm going to make it bold, and I'm going to center it. And I'm going to say Russ Westbrook 2016, 2017 stats. And see how it carried over? Maybe that was too big. Maybe I want to shrink it down to just 22 so it all fits. I say, okay, now look how much space this is taking up. That's way too big. I don't need it like that. I'm just going to come down here to the bottom. I'm going to click and drag it. And I want it just here at the top as a title. The other thing I did that we're going to want to do here is, and I'm going to have to open this up on another screen, so ignore me for a second. I type. So I'm going to go back to those pages that I had. and I'm going to do that basketball reference or sports reference. And I'm going to open up my data. And I'm going to put a web page on here. So I'm going to grab the web page object here. I'm going to carry it over and put it here on the left. And it wants the URL. So for the URL, all I'm doing is grabbing this at the top, and I'm copying it, and then I need to go paste it. But some of you may have run into the issue where you're right-clicking and nothing is happening. Just Control-V on your keyboard, or I think it's Command-V on a Mac. But the keyboard command for copy-paste still works. I'm going to hit OK, and it's going to load that page in. Cool. This looks kind of funny to me. I really feel like this needs to take up more space. Again, this is just a personal thing. I think that will look better. So I spread that out. Cool. Look, I have a dashboard. Now, we have done everything for one player. For the other player, there are a couple of things we need to do. First, you have two options here. You can pull in the other data source, like we talked about in class. Go back to my data sources and actually add the other chart. To do this, for whatever reason, the basketball reference website that we're pulling data from, the data is not reading correctly, and it's doing something weird where the data is pulling and not recognizing that the table is the same and that the columns are the same. And because of that, we are having a problem where it's not auto-connecting and relating the tables. So at this point, you have this first option, which is the easier option that I think a lot of you are going to go with, and that's fine, which is to go in and save this file. I'm going to hit Save As. We use Save As for a couple of reasons, not the least of which is that I want to do RW1617. That's what I'm going to call it. The Save As, the reason it's important is actually this Save As type right here, this drop-down. You want the second one, the Tableau Packaged Workbook, okay, the TWBX, which is exactly what the assignment tells you need, but it's easy to miss, okay? So I would save that, and you'll see it changes the name up here in the top and whatever. And then I would go to File again, and I would say New. And I would open a new one, and I would do exactly the same thing. I would connect to data. I would grab my Excel file. So you can go back here, and you can click on it however you want to. And I'd open my Jordan data, and I'd go through, and I'd create my worksheets just like I did here. If you want to go that route, that's fine. Just remember that you'll also need to save as on this one. Both of them will need to have their own dashboards. That's cool. If that's what you want to do, go for it. The other option is on this one, we go with the add, just like we talked about. And I'm going to open my Jordan data. And then on my Jordan data, I go grab the sheet and I drag it out here. And see this line between them, this blue line? As soon as I drop this, it's going to connect them. The problem it has is this validation failure. And if you mouse over the alert, you can actually click on it and see what it says. Has no matching fields. For whatever reason, it's not recognizing that the fields are the same. If you decide to go this route, you don't have to. But if you decide to, you can use this. What you would do is you would click here and go select a field, and I would say 3 pointers equals, I would select a field, and I would choose 3 pointers. And notice the 3p equals 3p, right? And then I add another one, and I go and I select 3-point percentage, and I match the 3-point percentage. And I go through each of these one at a time until I've connected all of the fields that I have in both sheets. This is slow. It is annoying. It works. Rather than go through and do this whole thing on camera, which you don't need to see, let me show you what that looks like when I have successfully done that. Okay, so I'm going to open another one that I did this and actually connected on. And if you go to the data source and look here, you'll note it no longer has that error because I did, in fact, connect everything. Because of that, I could go create a new file, and I've got my MJ tables and my RW tables. And so I just went in and made a Jordan one. And I named them appropriately with the RW, 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 MJ, MJ. And what's cool about this is, like, my Russell Westbrook page has all my stuff, and I moved it around and it looks different. That's fine. It doesn't have to look just like mine. But if I come to my second dashboard, here, instead of doing what I did on the first one, where I did one player and then the other player, my second dashboard actually has side by side with exactly the same statistics chosen. Here, you'll notice they're not in the same order, which would be an error on my part. I would want it to be points, then three-pointers, then field goal percentage, just to match it. But you'll notice both of them are based on the same field goal percentage. They both have the win-loss color coding. And I can look at them side by side and see how these worked. I can also mouse over and have all of this in one place. That's the upside to doing it this way. It is not required on this one that you do this, but it is an option, okay? So you can either do that first method I showed you, where you go, open a brand new Tableau workbook, pull in the Jordan data or whoever you picked, and go sheet 1 and grab your win-losses and grab your points. And I think on this one I did points, field goal percentage, and assists. And I would do all three, and I would uncheck the aggregate measures, and I would add my trend lines and do all of the things. And then I would add a second one, and I'd do it by date, and then I would make a dashboard, and I would just go back and forth between the two. If you go this route, you're turning in 2 Tableau workbook files. If you go this route, you're only doing 1. Up to you how you choose to do that. I don't really have a preference. Later on, you're going to need to be able to do this, so it wouldn't hurt to learn how to go through and connect your data sources like I was doing in this one, where I'm actually adding the fields and connecting each one. It's not hard, it's just tedious. It's annoying, but it works. And it does allow you to then go in and grab stuff from here, okay? So in this case, it's not a huge deal either way, but again, it's one of those things I would highly recommend practicing if you want to. Whichever way you go is fine with me. For the assignment, you're going to need to submit either a single that looks like this that has all of your sheets and dashboards in one, or you're going to need to do a 2 separate workbooks and turn in both. And then the last part of it is just your interpretation of the results. That's up to you. You can tell me, hey, this guy scored more points, or when he scored more points, they won more games. When this guy did, it didn't matter. So this guy was a better leader, and this guy was more of a team player, or whatever your interpretation is, right? So that's all we're doing here. So I'm going to stop here because this video can get pretty long if I'm not careful. But hopefully that gives you a better idea of how to click through things. So we're going to swap back to just me. If you do get stuck, if you do have questions or concerns, you can still reach out to me. But hopefully this makes it a little easier to follow along with what you need to do. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm going to try and do office hours this week, but my office has been under construction, so I don't know when I'll be able to get back in there. If I can be back tomorrow, I will be. If not, then, it is what it is. So either way, hope you got what you needed out of this video, and good luck on your assignment.